Saturday study painting a grim picture of violence in South Africa, especially in relation to children. Police statistics for 2015 to 2016 and 2019 to 2020 show that rape was the most prevalent crime committed against children aged 17 and younger. We also know that child abuse and neglect are becoming endemic in South Africa. Why is this happening? Let's ask Andrew Kekae, who is a social worker. Hopefully shortly we'll be joined by Dr. Shaheda Omar from the Teddy Bear Foundation. Andrew, good morning to you and welcome. I know, it's a grim question, but an important one. When you see the cases of parents appearing in court, convicted for abusing their children, sometimes for starving their children to death or beating them to death, it really raises a question of why this is happening. We know in some of the cases there are drugs and other substances that are potentially involved. Just paint a picture for us on the anatomy of child abuse in South Africa.
Thank you so much, Iman, and good morning to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. I think the abuse that is taking place in South Africa from the adult, because children are great imitators. They are the product of their environment. So the abuse and the violence that we see in children is actually a reflection and a projection of what is happening in the society, because children, they learn better through observation. And as they observe the adults conducting themselves in public and in private, they interpret that as a way of living, and they also personalize those behaviors and they start to project them themselves. And that is why we continue to see rise in violence, especially in children, because they are also involved in conducting themselves in a violent and aggressive way.
This is a very sad picture that you're painting, Andrew. We know the adage, hurt people hurt people. We also know the other adage that children learn what they live, and you're seeing the convergence of those concepts in the picture that you're describing for us now. So if that is the case, and in a way it's pathologized into our society, how do we undo it?
I think one of the best way to undo it is to fix our homes, because what we see in our communities, community members are members of household. They belong to families. We need to start sorting our houses in order, where we teach each other as adults healthier ways of expressing our emotions, because the truth of the matter is there are no bad or good emotions, but there are bad or good ways of expressing those emotions. So when we are in front of children, we need to make sure that it is not what we tell them only. It must be something that we also do in terms of conducting ourselves in a responsible way, knowing that how we behave will be the same way that our children will behave, because like I indicated, they are great imitators. So we need to start with ourselves as adults, try to solve our own issues, because I think also adults have issues that they are not resolving, and they reflect and project them in an aggressive and violent way, and that is where kids start to learn this violent behavior. So we need to set our houses in order and find better ways to express ourselves whenever we are angry or feeling aggressive as a society. We need to find better ways to express ourselves.
Dr. Shaheda Omar from the Teddy Bear Clinic joins us now. Shaheda, good morning. I'm not sure if you were able to hear the first part of the interview, but we're talking about society, having pathologized violence into the psyche of parents and communities, replaying those violent scenes or those violent acts on their children. So the cycle continues. And Andrew is saying and suggested some ways in which we can undo that. What are your thoughts on how parents can learn to be healthier and to do better?
Well, I think it's important that we appreciate, as my learned colleague Andrew spoke about, who are children role modeling. So they're role modeling the people that they live with, people that they are surrounded by, because if you look at learning theory and observational theory is the best teacher for children. So parents certainly have a huge role to play, but I don't think it's only, yes, they have a primary and a principal role to play, but we need to look at this from a systemic point of view. Engagement within different systems, whether it's with other peers, neighborhoods, schools, communities, faith-based organizations. However, the role of parents, coming back to your question, is that what we have realized is that children need to appreciate, if we look at the toxic masculinity that we are surrounded by, that is contributing to the increased incidence of gender-based violence. And of course, certainly this is being transferred to children because children mirror and reenact what they are surrounded by because it's often normalized. So how do we break this pathology or disrupt this pattern of intergenerational patterns of violence? Certainly it's about looking at roles and responsibilities and to dispel and debunk the myths and misconceptions that are surrounded by these prescribed roles. Now we need to look at equitable positions of power, equality, the gender sensitivity. So looking at the stereotyped gendered norms and roles, where it has been, I think if we just look for time immemorial, where prescribed roles that males are expected to bring in money, the females are expected to be expected to be subordinate, submissive, and of course comply with certain roles, cleaning household chores, rearing children. And I think, so what can we do? We need to address these things, actually go through that. And we've actually engaged in a program. I think it's important that during COVID, we had a program with Takalani, Sesame Street, where we received overseas funding, where we went into disadvantaged communities, particularly impoverished contexts where parents had no connection or communication with children. So what I'm saying is getting parents to engage with children, teaching parents how to communicate. There isn't a parenting manual. There aren't, specific checklists and prescriptive guidelines that can say A for this, B for that, C for that, and tick off the checklist. So again, it's about enabling parents, giving them those communication
Shaheda, let me come in there quickly, because I think the point that you're raising is key, and Andrew, I'd like you to round us off on that. In my view, just very simplistically, we have a license for everything, how to drive, how to do this or that task. One of the most sacrosanct tasks is the bearing and the raising of children. And perhaps, and I know it might sound too radical to say, oh, well, we should have a license for before you can actually have a child. And that, of course, exists in some utopia somewhere, doesn't exist in reality. But what can we do to ensure that there is a mechanism of support? What Shaheda is talking about, bending, or not bending, but like disrupting gender roles and stereotypes and the expectations, that's one way. But the other way is to practically show parents how to raise children. Is that support and that resource in the system? And for parents who are watching, would-be parents who are watching, or people who find themselves parents unexpectedly, where can they go for this kind of support?
Thank you so very much. I think in many communities, we do have organizations, we do have Department of Social Development, social workers, and child welfare organization. And time and again, they have parenting workshop. I remember a few years ago, there was a program called Positive Parenting Program that was actually equipping, developing, and capacitating parents on how to parent their kids, because there is no formula to raise a child. But when parents come together, they can share healthy way of raising and parenting their children. So we just need to work with the organizations in the community and attend this parenting program, so that at the end of the day, we can be able to raise healthier children who will be able to thrive in our society.
All right, we leave it there. There's so much more that's left to be said, and hopefully we can continue this conversation. Dr. Shaheda Omar, thank you for talking to us, as well as Andrew Kekae, who is a social worker.